The management of this theater thanks you for your patronage.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
I don't think so.
Don't sleep.
Never sleep again.
Yeah, that's all right. I actually looked it up. The record is 11 days with no sleep.
Yeah, she says that in the movie.
No,
right?
I think she says 7 days, but the world record is 11
Oh, no,
days.
she says she's done 7.
Yeah.
I looked it up. It's okay. Like somebody did 11.
Yeah. It was like some kid it was like a student project. He stayed awake for 11 days and then lost his freaking mind.
Yeah, because it's
he was
not good for you.
hallucinating. No, it's not good for you. That's why I like to sleep. I sleep as much as humanly possible. Although after watching these 2 movies, I haven't slept in probably 7 days myself.
Really?
No. I don't like
I want to tell you a
Michael and
scary
Freddy.
Halloween story, though,
Oh, yeah? Okay.
about the tale of the ghost pants.
The ghost pants?
This is the weirdest thing that happened this week.
All righty,
me.
let's hear this. This is a true story?
This is a true story. This happened to me this week.
Okay, can we just say welcome to everybody who's listening right
Sure.
now?
Welcome. Would you
And
like
now
to
we're
hear
going to get a ghost, but this is like an original story that we're getting right now from our illustrious author.
a true life story. No,
Okay,
they're not really ghosts. That's what my son has been calling them, the ghost pants, because I ordered some pants like back in January. They never showed up. Okay. They said they shipped them. They never arrived. I called the company. They were like, so sorry. They refunded me the money. They sent me another pair at half price. No problem. Right. 2 days ago, out of the blue, the missing package from like 10 months ago showed up.
So you had received the second order already.
I think that's Murphy's Law, though. Whenever I call to complain about a missing package, I get the first one, and then I have a morality dilemma. Like, what do I do now? Do I return the first one? Do I?
This is 10 months later.
Wow.
Because
may I ask what service provided this delivery?
UDS.
Oh, come on.
Isn't that a potato chip?
United Delivery Service.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was just so bizarre because
that is weird.
Months and months and months.
So are you keeping both?
My husband was like, you should just keep it. And I was like, well, I don't know. It's like a pair of lined pants, like they have fleece lined in them. So I really only wear them on super cold days.
Yeah, but now you have 2 pair. And
I bet you if you actually call them or email them saying, hey, the second one showed up, 99% sure they're going to say just keep them. Just keep them.
Well, sure, because it's been so long, but that was it. It wasn't that like the first package showed up when I said it was missing. It was that it showed up.
But that's really bizarre.
Almost a year later.
Right.
Like it was sitting in a warehouse and somebody was suddenly like,
somebody
maybe we
tripped
should
over
deliver this.
Yeah.
And
it wasn't like it was mangled. It was stuck inside a machine somewhere for months.
It wasn't mangled. It didn't look dirty.
Yeah. So we have changed the parameters of our podcast, and we're just talking about bad deliveries now. So,
are you wearing the pants right now?
Yeah,
that's what everybody wants to know.
Pants right now, it's not cold enough. They're really cold weather pants. I mean, we do get extremely cold weather here.
Well, you
in
are
the
in Chicago.
Midwest.
It is the Windy City. But to come back full circle, ghost pants.
They're haunting me now. They wanted to be here in the house.
Now they're taunting you. Yeah.
Wear me. Wear me.
If I put them on,
wear me.
If I put them on, I'll be possessed by the spirit of it.
Yeah. There you go. Wow, that's Ghost Pants. That's a new
very
one.
scary story, huh?
Yeah, the elusive Midwest cryptid.
We do have a Mothman in Chicago.
Yes, we have talked about that. I've looked into that. I was not aware that Mothman had traveled. Maybe he had your pants.
Maybe that's just some guy with a sweater vest that didn't get delivered 10 months later.
Mothman.
Yeah. Yep.
Trying to get back to West Virginia.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So we are deep into spooky territory.
Yeah,
here.
for any of our
Haunted
listeners
pants and all that are still with us.
that are still there. Yep. This is about Halloween ends, and which is very fitting, apropos, because we are in our last week of October here at TMI. Very sad occasion.
Shocktober.
Mm-hmm.
But Halloween will end, and we are going to discuss this ending today.
Oh boy, we're going to discuss this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I've been holding on to my thoughts for.
I know
you
said you saw it last week, boy. I just saw it on Friday night, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around my thoughts. I think Christina already alluded to the fact that we will also be pairing this up with Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes,
the original 1984.
It was so funny because my son was like, make sure they know to watch the original and not the remake. I'm like, they're Gen Xers. They're not going to watch the remake. That's not even going to be on their radar.
Yes. Although I would have preferred to watch the original Halloween.
I, too, would have preferred to watch the original Halloween, but I usually watch it every year anyway. Don't you watch it every year?
No. Please stop yourself. I did dip my toe into the spooky season, though. When we get into what else have you watched?
Oh, yeah?
I did pick a spooky movie because my wife is not here. So I felt that I could sit in the dark, and I chose a movie. But you may laugh at the one I chose. But
one thing I found interesting, and you guys can talk about what kind of theater experience you had. It does seem like this has made a decent amount of money, like all things considered. They did the day and date release with Peacock.
Yeah.
I think it's doubled its budget at least. It's considered an underperformer because it's not making as much money as the first two did, but who knows how much.
Well, that's because people saw the first two.
The first one was very good, I thought.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah,
but that's usually par for the course with trilogies in general. First one, yes. Second one,
yeah,
and then third one.
We've talked about Back to the Future 3 in my.
Well, there are some outliers, of course. Yeah. You got Star Wars and Empire and Jedi.
Yeah. Well, listen, some people listen to
this. Is
everyone
true
out there. There are people who love those third movies. I have no news. I
was going to ask you about the trailers you saw because we saw a very weird combination of trailers. There's such a weird mash of things.
It's an odd, like we talked about. You've got like this Halloween. Like some of these are scary, but they're not coming out soon, and then other ones are leading into like the holiday season. So
we saw Armageddon Time, which is some sort of coming of age story movie. With Anthony Hopkins. We also saw a preview for House Party. Looks like a remake of Kid and Play movie.
What is this? That's exactly what that is, but it's like that's neither Kid nor Play. No, it's and they're in LeBron James' house.
Yes.
Is it a sequel to Space Jam?
That would be spot on right there.
It's like such a weird thing to remake because I don't know that like people were clamoring for a remake of House Party.
Did they make like 3 of those?
I don't know. I think there was at least 2. The trailer for Glass Onion, again, I'm excited because as you know, I've
seen a trailer for this.
Oh, really?
No.
I'm pretty psyched. My girl Janelle Monáe is in it.
Oh, nice. So I like her.
And there's a lot of like just overall looks like a great cast. And as you know, I love mysteries, so this is like 2000% up my alley. They're
really leaning into like those Agatha Christie whodunit, where you're bringing in these star-studded casts, which is fine. I love Knives Out. Clarifier.
And then the last 2 we saw were Megan, which is the Chucky movie, or Small Wonder, whatever you want to call it. And again, it's like who would even go for like a robot companion for their
Well,
kid?
we just talked. Yeah, she looks like AI's little sister.
And then Violent Night.
Yes, that's the one I wanted to talk about. They're just making the Santa Claus movie that we saw the trailer for at the beginning of Scrooged. I was like, it's just a bad Santa.
I just can't figure out. Have you guys seen? You've obviously seen the trailer, Jeff. Did you see the trailer, Jim?
No, because I didn't watch Halloween Ends in the theater. I saw it.
That's right.
That's right.
So I can't figure out what kind of tone they're going for here. It's so bizarre. It's David Harbour as like a John Wick type Santa Claus.
Like he's really Santa Claus with superpowers.
Like he's the real Santa, but he's like taking down these kidnappers.
Yeah.
So what's it rated? Does it say?
It looks like it's a rated R movie for sure.
Yeah.
But the tone is so weird because it's sort of like comic jokey, but also looks super
very
violent.
serious. Yeah, it does look violent.
I do not know like who their target audience is for this movie.
It does look like tonally they're not all in on just, tongue firmly planted in cheek.
I don't know. My son is like, I want to see this.
I do want to see it myself. I'll go with him. We better have a farting reindeer. Otherwise, I'm out. So, yeah, that's interesting. Oh, that's right. Jim watched Halloween Ends at home.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Were you happy that you didn't have to go to the theater?
I was.
Yeah. We do laud the fact that we can go back to the theater and we can have the experience, but it's nice to have the option.
The at-home experience was brought to me by the film Megan, so I did see the trailer. So it was sponsored by.
That's actually
it was one. It was just that.
If you're not watching a certain channel, you're not getting certain trailers.
Yeah, because I assume it's a Universal movie, so that's why the tie-in. But
we're going to universally not watch it.
And then the other thing I wanted to mention, because this is relevant to like the box office take, is we went to the theater. It was opening weekend for Halloween Ends. We were standing in line and there was a group of like 9 teenagers standing in front of us. And I was like, they must be here for Halloween Ends because large groups of teenagers go to see horror movies. That's what they do, right? No, the youth of America have rejected your old person's franchise. They were going to see Smile, which has been still doing really well 6 weeks in.
Well, I had a different experience because my theater, I saw this on Friday, so it was almost 2 weeks into its run, was filled with teenagers.
Well, Friday night.
And they were wilding Friday night. And I will say, when I came out of the theater, my lobby was hopping. I have not seen my theater this busy in quite some time. So, but I probably had about 45 plus other people in the theater watching this. And most of them were young kids who were screaming and yelling and having a grand old time. And usually my grumpy old self, I'm telling these people to shut their phone off or be quiet. And I just took it all in because they were into the movie and they were into that stupid trailer. Maybe somebody does know what they're talking about and they're going to get these kids to go watch a stupid robot.
Yeah, I don't like teenagers in general. So I'm glad I stayed home.
It's a problem because your child eventually becomes a teenager.
That is a problem. That is a problem.
You know what? You will not like him. And that is by design.
Yes.
Yeah. We've
and
all been there.
And they don't always like you.
No, they shouldn't. My parents are the worst. Yeah, that's right. Get out of the house. Go live your life.
Yep.
And then 10 years, 15 years down the road, you'd be like, wow, my parents were the best.
Yeah. But my son, he was really looking forward to this because he's pretty into the whole Halloween franchise overall.
He liked kills.
He did, because it was exactly what he wanted from the movie.
Let me tell you, kills just raised an estimation to me after watching this one. I was nostalgic for Halloween Kills.
So this is what he said, and I completely agree with him, right? Okay. You go to see a slasher movie because you want to see dumb people getting killed. Okay. Halloween Kills is full of this.
Halloween Kills, if that's your criteria, then it excelled.
Right.
Because people were doing very, very stupid things just to get killed.
And he liked this, but he was disappointed because he was like, there's hardly anybody even gets killed in this movie.
Yeah, this is I made no bones about the fact that I absolutely hated kills. I was mad, not even caring for the franchise. And I was like, if you cared about this, because it's one big setup for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then this movie is something completely different, and you don't get what you want until the last 10 minutes.
It's so weird.
It's a weird movie, but at some point I get what they're going for. But again, you've got your main character, Michael Myers, and that's why people are there for. He's completely sidelined. He's a backup quarterback in his own game.
Well, this is I had suggested that we pair this, sight unseen with Friday the 13th Part 4, which was the final chapter, because, quote unquote, the final chapter, quote unquote, ends. And I think that it has much more in common with Friday the 13th 5, when they attempted to bring in a new Jason, which was Tommy Jarvis or whatever the guy's name was. And it was completely rejected by audiences. And then Jason came back in Friday the 13th Part 6.
To be fair, we also could have done Nightmare on Elm Street 2 for this reason, because Freddy's possessing the kid in Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
And we could have also done Joel Schumacher's Batman and Robin, because that's basically what this is.
No, you know what? That's interesting that you bring that up, because there's direct parallels to Corey, our main character, being Arnie from Christine.
Well, yeah, that too. This is I've seen a lot online.
I came to that
because you've got the mechanic aspect. The pre-final battle takes place in Darnell's garage. He scratches the invitation on the car. It's more than just a peripheral relationship to Christine.
Cunningham. They leaned into it, but I'm like, this is Christine, because he comes across Michael, who's decrepit and down on his luck. No one has seen him in 4 years, and he's slowly building him back up. So he's bringing him kills to repower him.
Right.
It's
so
like
I felt
he was rebuilding Christine.
I felt it was like a Renfield Dracula relationship. That was what I was thinking. But here's the thing.
Okay.
When we were talking about the second movie, I said that I felt like David Gordon Green was trying to say something about mob mentality and how it affects the people in the town.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't sure that his overall message was sort of coming through, that it was clear. And I said, I wanted to see this chapter to see how he resolves that.
Yes,
and correct. I still think he's a little bit on the mob mentality, because Corey has become this football that the town kicks around because of this tragic accident where he was babysitting this kid on Halloween night. The kid locked him in the attic. He was trying to get out. He kicks the door open. The kid was standing on the other side of the door, and he went over the banister and he died.
Oh yeah. Spoiler alert, by the way.
And what's at the beginning of the movie?
I know, but I'm just while we're here.
And I did think right at the beginning, I was like, oh, he's accidentally going to kill the kid, because he was carrying the knife around. So I actually thought he might stab the kid by accident.
Yeah, because the kid's going to pop out, do a jump scare, and then he's going to just stab him.
That's how you get killed. Don't jump out at me. I'll pop you right in the nose.
And then he's beaten up, he's in his 20s. Obviously, his life has never kind of become what he wanted. He's beaten up by these teenagers and tossed over a bridge into this culvert, and Michael Myers finds him and drags him in. This is where it gets a little weird. It's like it's like Michael looks into his eyes and sees some quality
kindred spirit
in him that he decides he wants to cultivate, so he doesn't kill him. But it's strange, because I feel like what David Gordon Green should have done was committed to the handoff. He should have had Michael totally pass off to Corey in some way. So you have the big confrontation maybe between Laurie and Michael in the middle of the movie, but then Corey continues. So the town continues to be haunted, but he is now Michael Myers.
And that's what you think is going to happen.
I think that would be more of a cheat to audiences than what we got. because then suddenly you're watching a Corey movie and not a Michael Myers movie.
Well, that's exactly
and nobody
what
wants that.
But it seemed
exactly what we got.
It seemed like that was what he was going for. But then he sort of backed off of it, like he was scared.
I'm sure he probably thought, I'm sure that's what he thought too. Now, we talk about big swings and how big swings are admirable, and sometimes they make it. This is a big swing. It is, but it's like at the Super Bowl. It's like trying to hit a home run at a completely different game than baseball.
Oh, okay, good. I was waiting for you to point out that analogy doesn't work. You can't get a home run in a Super Bowl. I got you now.
You got me.
But I think watching these three together, you do see that at least he's trying something different. He's just not going down the road and replicating what happened. Halloween, the first one in this reboot, is the better movie. The second one, again, it's almost like The Last Jedi, which is like, you're so out of left field. Nobody knows what I'm watching here. And then this one, I appreciate what he was trying to set up and do. But it becomes a Corey Cunningham movie. And Corey Cunningham on the loose is not as scary. Although it is, it's the 4-year time jump. It's like, I guess Laurie just got over her Sarah Connor phase. And now she's living, with the granddaughter, and they're making pies and everyone's happy and they're putting out Halloween decorations, even though this whole slaughter that happened at the end of the second one looms over this town. But it informs who and what Corey is. And
as Christina was saying before about the mob mentality, it informs Haddonfield, because as you're watching this, you're like, this is the place I would want to live least in the world, is Haddonfield. Everybody's a jerk. Everybody's rude. It's just roaming gangs of marching band bullies.
What is up with marching band bullies? I'm like, do we just run out of people to be holes? So marching band. Yeah, I don't think I've met a single person in the marching band that
and the one kid in the marching band that you want to see die the most, not the head one, but the one with the bad haircut. The other male, he dies off screen. You're like, he's the one I wanted to see egregiously die.
No, not only that, neither one of those two girls wanted to be party to this, and yet they were flat out slaughtered. And I thought that was egregious.
But still, they were duplicit. They were still hanging out with these guys later on.
They were marching band. Listen, you got marching band groupies.
The only one who seemed like
Megan
was Margot. She was like, she was nice to Corey. She was like, "Oh, are you okay?" She was like,
and she got one of the worst
and she got run over. I was like, man,
that was cool.
But still, she's still hanging out. If she broke ties right there after you throw the kid over the bridge, I'm like, I would hope that she would say, "Okay, I think I'm done with them now." But no, didn't happen. She's still hanging around with them. It is
nice to know that Corey did not need those glasses, because once they destroy them, he never wears glasses again, and yet can see. He can drive. He can find people to kill him.
But even the radio station is like, you'd think
WURG.
That'd be like, making fun of 9/11 a year after it happened on the radio. Yeah. That wouldn't stand. Whoever this guy is.
It's really stupid. This whole setup, we don't want to talk. It's 4 years later. We don't really want to talk about it. But at the end of this movie, someone is setting up a gift shop. This is Salem in the making, just like last week's episode where we talk about the Sanderson sisters. Now the town's going to hang their hat on this. Come to our town where the mass killer killed a bunch of people.
The other thing I'm not super clear on.
Can we get this
again? It sort of seems like he's trying to say something. He's trying to draw a parallel between Allison and Corey and Laurie and Michael. And I'm very disturbed by this, because it's like he's implying that these women are inherently attracted to violence, or that they deserve what they get in some way.
I didn't like the character of Allison, because especially at the end after Corey's dead, and she, of course, blames Laurie, even though Corey is wearing a Michael Myers outfit and with the mask. I'm like, what, did Laurie dress him up before she killed him?
Right. And see, this is every time you thought Laurie had kind of gotten over it, these little confrontations with people in the town that continue to blame her for.
But she forgives her at the end. So Allison forgives Laurie at the end, but says to her, "But I loved him." because she says, I knew that he killed those people, but you still loved him. When did you realize that he killed those people? It's not clear.
This is when Anakin slaughters all the Tuscans and Natalie Portman's like, I'm still in. That's fine. That's good. Let's have a baby together. Come on.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like, it does seem like he's trying to draw some parallel between their relationships. And at the end, he has Laurie holding Michael's hand. This guy killed her daughter, killed her best friends, terrorized her from afar for, 30 years. He's a monster. An actual monster, and she's holding Michael's hand as he's dying.
Right. Precious little is said about her daughter.
But you talk about monster. They set up. They literally at the very end of Kills set up this idea that he is this entity.
Yeah.
That he is this
unkillable entity
that feeds on fear, and yet it never really goes anywhere at the end of the
because he's feebled in this one. He's not superhuman anymore.
Well, right. So he just disappears. He becomes like a sewer gator. I mean, at one point,
and everybody just lets him go. There should be an FBI manhunt for this. Where did he go? He's living in the van under the bridge down by the river.
Well,
I thought I accidentally walked into Lyle Crocodile. I'm like, this guy's living in the sewers here.
But what's weird is when he kills the cop, the one who was following Corey, it seems
this
like
guy Doug was a cop, and he was the most inept. Like, he just crawls right into that sewer going, are you in here?
It seems like he gets energized somehow.
Yeah.
He draws power from it, from that kill. And there's all these signs all over town about missing people, right? And they keep mentioning the missing people on the radio. So you kind of need to be paying attention to that.
They do.
So they do imply that he's continuing to kill people.
But again, 4 years later, no one's able to connect the dots. Because what is it? Will Patton's character, he was a cop too, and yet we don't really see him in that capacity. Look, at the end of the movie, Laurie calls 911, and it takes them a half hour to get to her house.
Well, he's almost killed, right? He's almost killed in the last movie, so he's probably like, I've lost the taste for this.
Well, I mean, when we saw him, and that's a nice, like,
he says he's retired, right? He's learning Japanese, and
that's right. He wanted to see the cherry blossoms. Okay, you're right. So, but I wanted to see that guy step up. There's a lot of, like you said, you pay attention and you see the missing person signs. How many times did the camera have to pan over the machine chomping metal? That's coming back into play.
But I thought it would be when he lured the kids to the garage. I was like, oh, one of them's going in the chopper.
No.
But no, it was, they saved it all the way to the end.
Yeah. And one of the kids in my theater, as we're walking out, literally turned to his friend and said, so is he really dead?
Yes.
I'm like, it ends. It's the end of the movie.
You saw him go into the chopper.
No, the next movie will be the chopper is possessed by the spirit of Michael Myers.
That's right.
Halloween chopper.
Yep.
I like it. Speaking of Halloween, it is October 31st. It is Halloween. Not a single trick-or-treater. You never once see trick-or-treaters anywhere. And don't tell me they don't trick-or-treat, because we see people putting decorations out. Laurie was putting out a spider, and she had pumpkins. Was that the original pumpkin from the first Halloween, by the way, the opening credit? Was it? No, I'm asking.
Oh,
the face on the pumpkin that's in her
I think
room.
So. Yeah.
The timeline is a bit confusing because Halloween Kills Halloween Kills 2018, same night.
Right.
Corey's babysitting misadventures in babysitting takes place the year after 2019.
Right.
Oh, okay.
This movie takes place now, present day.
Right.
Yeah, 4 years later.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just wanted to get that out of the way. And he doesn't kill the bum either. Like, if he's drawing energy from these kills.
I think the bum may have been helping him as well. The bum knew he was there.
So again, there's a lot of stuff.
Hung out. Maybe they hung out together. There's a lot of stuff
that's kind of implied, but not completely followed through. And I think it just makes it very muddled. Like I said, if he was going to have this handoff to Corey, then he should have just committed to the handoff. Instead, he kind of half-asses it, where Corey's kind of Michael, but kind of not. And then
he's running around with the scarecrow mask early on, and right. I'm like, that is not scary at all. You got to find yourself something better than that. Jim, did you like the fact that Ronald was watching Hard Target though?
Yes, I did. I love that. I did.
Now I'm assuming that was like Corey's stepdad, or because obviously he give the kid a job in the scrapyard or whatever, and that the mom who deserved to die.
So Corey at the beginning, when he goes and he's talking to the kid's parents during the babysitting scene, the opener, he's talking about choosing colleges. This kid's mother would never let him go to college. This is Carrie's mother.
Well, you got the impression that maybe he didn't go after this.
He didn't, but she never let him go to college. She was too possessive. He had no life, even if this didn't happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that she's the one that pushed him. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of threads in here, and I'm not sure they're all woven together in like a completely coherent manner. And there's just long stretches of this movie where there's like no suspense at all.
Yeah, it's like you're looking at some kind of pilot for the CW for long stretches. Taking romantic motorcycle rides after getting out of work. And I was asking myself, what am I watching here? I know this is Halloween. I saw the opening credits, but where is this going?
I think a lot of people thought that. They're like, what am I watching here? In the trailer, you do see the Laurie Michael fight.
Yeah.
And as this goes along, I'm like, this is a complete, we're going to get a Corey Laurie fight at the end. This is not, they're setting us up for a huge red herring, but it did turn out it was Michael. He does come back.
Michael was pretty mad because Corey stole his mask.
Yeah, well, it's about the only thing he owns.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the fact that Laurie's go-to move after 45 years is just to hide in the closet.
Well,
we see that doesn't go well.
You know what?
Listen, don't get me wrong. That's the first place I'd go.
Look, don't engage with the supernatural killer. I think that's a good instinct.
He was anything but supernatural. I am sorry. They completely dropped the ball on that, except for the fact that he magically was energized whenever Corey brought him a kill, like a little trapdoor spider.
Yeah, I was missing the Laurie from the 2018 Halloween who had booby trapped her house.
Yeah,
and this is when Michael was locked away. They haven't seen him or know where he is for 4 years, and she's okay with that. She's just going to write a book about it and then be done, and she's going to wash her hands of this.
Like I said, she completely 4 years of therapy, and she's over this whole Sarah Connor survivalist phase. And I get, she wants to kind of live her life now, but this Allison, this kid takes every opportunity to remind her grandmother that this is all her fault.
Yeah, and that's such a weird thing. Like, why do people in town blame Laurie? Like the next door neighbor, right? Who's, her sister starts yelling at Laurie in the grocery store parking lot. Like, this is your fault.
Do these people, do they just wait in that parking lot for Laurie to show up?
Yeah, well, it's a small town, so they know she's got to go grocery shopping. I am happy that nobody screamed evil dies tonight. Not once. But they were all ready to line up and do a procession to the scrapyard. Tied to the roof like a Christmas tree.
Well, it was, I understood kind of what he was going for.
It's like cathartic, yes.
Like the town needed proof that he was really dead so that he could stop being their boogeyman.
Yeah.
And I got that, but
it seems like Laurie was just as much of a boogeyman to them.
The town also that's the thing where I'm talking about the mob mentality. The town creates Corey.
Yes.
Right. It creates him as a killer by rejecting him, by pushing him outside of society, by not forgiving him for this accident, this terrible accident that he clearly feels awful about.
And was exonerated. He was never charged for it. But guilty by, that's all it takes. Oh, I know you. You're that kid killer. You're that little babysitter.
Right. So then he's this person who's created by the town. Again, it's like, what's David Gordon Green trying to say here? Like, Michael was the embodiment of evil. That if you go back to the original film, Donald Pleasance's character was always talking about how Michael was evil incarnate, right? Like he looked into his eyes and he saw blackness. And now you have this character who Laurie, at least, and Allison and a few other people feel sorry for because he's clearly struggling. But then, this one thing happens and then suddenly like evil is inside of him because he's been pushed to the limit by the town.
I think the town is not going to be helped by this seemingly cathartic chopping up of Michael. They're going to be looking for other people. They're going to think this is all right now. This is maybe Laurie's going to be the next one in the chopping block the following year. This reminded me of the 76 King Kong when I think it's Jeff Bridges and Charles Grodin, or Grodin is saying those natives, they're thanking us for taking Kong away. And Bridges is like, no, they're going to be an island of burnout drunks in a year.
Because they don't have any focus.
Yeah.
Like I said, don't be surprised. There will be a Michael Myers gift shop set up in Haddonfield by the end of the season. I only have one more question about this movie. And I'm going to ask Christina this, which is, why would the bike not stand up?
Good question. I don't know why the bike wouldn't stand up. I know it's a dad joke.
It was too tired. Allison told Corey the joke.
And my question is, why would the nurse in the dentist's office still continue to call this guy Dr. Mathis?
Yes,
when she's
I know.
Having an affair with him.
Listen. I'm seeing the doctor. Doctor's in the house, baby. Doc,
she's in his house.
Doc, I got a pain right now.
They're about to get busy, and she's calling him from the other room. Dr. Mathis? Like they're in the office.
You gotta call on line 3. There's a killer at the door, Dr. Mathis. Dr. Mathis, please come to the front door.
It does seem like there's a gross power dynamic there. I'm sure he prefers to be called Dr. Mathis.
I would.
And that would have been good if they could have actually shown that.
Right.
Hey, Bob,
correct.
Call me Dr. Mathis,
Yeah, he was a creep. Bob. Right. No, it's Dr. Mathis.
And we've also established that Michael Myers cannot grow a full beard, unfortunately.
Well, listen.
It's funny because he's been in there for 4 years, but his hair is trimmed.
Yeah. Maybe the bum was taken care of. Like I said, I think him and the bum probably have a symbiotic relationship. Brings him a couple, rabid raccoons, eats them, sustains himself. I don't know. It was bizarre.
I just don't know what he was going for here. It seemed like he had a lot of big ideas and didn't necessarily pull them all together. And I'm totally open to like a different interpretation. Especially after the second chapter, I kind of wanted to see this
Where
all come together. And I just feel like it didn't really all come together.
No, I agree.
So,
until someone else comes along, I guess that's the last of Michael.
5 years or less.
You give it 5 years? I don't even give it 5 years.
Because it's not going to be Blumhouse. Right? It's not going to be Blumhouse because they lost the rights now. Yeah.
Well, after this, they deserve to lose them.
Right? Well, people
we're taking this back.
People were not thrilled about Rob Zombie's interpretation of Halloween either.
This reminded me of, because I bailed on that because we actually went to go see that at the drive-in when it came out, and after 20 minutes we're like, I don't want to sit and watch this anymore.
You left the drive-in?
Yeah.
Did you really? Wow, that says a lot, because we've sat through some serious dregs in this podcast, so that's interesting. I've never seen it, nor do I have any interest in seeing it.
So I just feel like nobody somehow is ever really happy. But I thought that he was off to a good start with the reboot here. Yeah. The first one was really good, but I'm just not sure what happened along the way.
As you say, in 5 years, I think that they're just going to negate these two movies and start with Halloween 2018 again. Forget about what happened in these two. Yeah. This is what happened, really.
Well, except Jamie Lee says she's not doing anymore.
Listen,
recast her, or she's in a flashback, she's killed or something. They'll do it again. They'll do it again. They'll find some way.
Corey's unborn child.
Right, Allison left town, so maybe the curse just follows her wherever she goes.
I don't know.
Yeah, the internet is all up in arms, as you can imagine. Although I did read something interesting where they've actually come out, and I didn't even know that they still did this, but there's a movie tie-in novel for Halloween Ends. And apparently it fills in all these blanks that we're putting out there in this episode, where it picks up exactly where Halloween Kills left off, where Michael, after, killing the daughter, slinks into the sewers and is the one that is killing these people that you see missing in this movie to kind of sustain himself. Almost, like Pennywise living in the in the sewers. And this also fills in some other blanks, apparently. So if you're interested in learning what all this missing stuff is, then go get yourself the movie tie-in novel of Halloween Ends.
Alan Dean Foster write that?
I think he did. You can't write one of these without being Alan Dean Foster.
I was on a panel with him one time.
Yeah.
Did you? Were you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In Phoenix.
That name is so synonymous with every freaking movie novel I've ever read.
Owen Gleiberman, who we know from Entertainment Weekly, is now writing for Variety. Neither scary nor fun. The most joylessly metaphorical and convoluted entry yet.
Yeah, it's lacking the key element of a slasher movie, which is the slashing.
Yeah. And then
we cut that out.
So RogerEbert.com said barely a Halloween movie, which is what a lot of people are saying.
Yeah.
Although Rolling Stone, Time Out, and the New York Times liked it.
Okay.
I think there are things to appreciate about it, but overall, this is Disney's Star Wars reboot, which is you don't treat them as one story arc in a 3-tiered chapter. You take each movie on its own merits and then try and figure it out on the back end. And this is all the same guy, where at least in The Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams, but then you hand it off to other creatives. But there's no through thread on any of this. It's like, all right, I set this up, now you figure it out. And it's a weird monster.
And like Christina said at the opening, the movie's not doing terribly. I think as it sits this weekend, it's at about $70 million on a $30 million budget. It's already doubled its budget, but again, not what they projected it to make. And I think it's a combination of competition. We mentioned Smile, and bad word of mouth. It's getting terrible word of mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I wanted to like it. I was willing to see it through. And this is a franchise that I like overall. And even though some of the entries are crummy, which kind of is just par for the course when you have a long running horror franchise, like some of the films are going to be better than others. Yeah, I just feel like he didn't pull it all together with the big bang that maybe he intended at the end. He's going to have a go at The Exorcist, apparently. And I'm nervous about this because I know Jim's not a fan of The Exorcist, but I am. That's a
I'm going to predict there's going to be a female exorcist.
Or Regan has a boyfriend. And the story won't actually start until about an hour and a half into the movie.
You're gonna have
long rides on the motorcycle.
He's gonna have grown-up Linda Blair and her child.
You gotta bring her in, sir.
So, all right, how many buckets would we give Halloween
You're
Ends?
like so defeated. You're like, I'm gonna go 2.5.
Do you remember what you gave Kills? How many buckets you gave Kills?
Man, no, I don't. I hope it's lower than that because I probably didn't.
I gave Kills 3.
Ooh.
And I'm gonna give this 2.5. I was still with him for Kills. I was like, okay, we'll see where you're going. But
we don't like where you're going.
Yeah.
All right. I don't remember what I gave Halloween Kills, but I really hope that I'm giving this less than I did. I'm going to go 2 bucks. It's because it's like it doesn't even pay attention to what it set up in Halloween Kills. Suddenly, the first Halloween, you get the indication that, okay, he's a normal guy. He's not this force of evil that is immortal. He's just a guy in jail that got out, and he's very angry. So it's set up a sequel, but suddenly as that movie wore on, okay, he's the same old supernatural, unkillable Michael Myers. Here, he's not that anymore.
Yeah.
So it was too disjointed. This whole trilogy just doesn't make any narrative sense to me. So 2 buckets, Halloween Ends.
No, I think that is spot on. Unfortunately.
Because there was a strong start here.
Yeah, agreed. Oh well. Let's go on to something better then.
Yes, let's go to the concession stand, and we will be right back with A Nightmare on Elm Street.
The foam zombies are very, very dead, but they're not in their graves, and they're not walking the night. They're in the phone line, and they've got your number. Want theirs? Dial 1-900-DEAD. Randomly selected callers get to talk to me live in the flesh. When you reach me, you'll wish you never called.
Only $2 a call. Stephen King, author of Carrie, said, Evil Dead is the most ferociously original horror film of the year. If you think he's kidding, see for yourself. Evil Dead. They got up on the wrong side of the grave. Evil Dead from New Line Cinema.
Starts tomorrow at these theaters. Check newspapers for times.
Okay, we are back. And again, fascinatingly, we've never spoken of this movie at all on this show.
I try not to talk about it at all. I don't know how many sequels it.
Well, I think
reboots or the
people of a certain age. I think this might be a litmus test. It might be some kind of a childhood benchmark that you have to get through watching Nightmare on Elm Street.
It is a rite of passage.
Yeah.
And I think we all have very vivid memories of our first time seeing this.
Yeah. So this is like probably because I'm so much younger than you guys.
I was going to say 84, you were probably what, 2?
I was a very little person.
Yeah.
So I saw this when I was 10. I was born in 74. This came out in 84, but you got to remember the VHS release was 6 months after, and I only turned 10 in August of 84. So I was still pretty young when this came out on VHS. And I went to my friend's house for a sleepover. Jessica Costa. Hi, Jessica, if you're listening.
Jessica.
And she had an older sister who was, like 5 or 6 years older, went to the video store, rented for us. I didn't choose either of these films. Jessica picked them.
Did she also buy you beer?
Nightmare on Elm Street and the Last American Virgin. And
which is just about to be released for the first time on Blu-ray, by the way.
Really?
The Last American Virgin. Yes, I just saw like a news blurb about that this week. Yeah.
Is that the only person that can light the black candle at this point?
And neither of these films are films that 10-year-olds should be watching.
No.
I just wanted that to go on record.
Yeah.
And I think I've mentioned this before, but Nightmare on Elm Street really scared me, not least of which because Freddy is calling my name.
Tina.
He's calling my name.
Starts the movie with him. Tina.
He's calling my name. I had nightmares about him calling me for years after I saw this movie. It was very, very scared of this movie. And
this is a scary movie. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is no holds barred. I mean, Freddy becomes Jim alluded to this at the end of last episode, which is, in the franchise later, he becomes like a smart ass, wisecracking,
like a caricature of himself
right
later on, which he is not even approaching that yet here.
No, he barely speaks in this.
Yeah.
He does though. He speaks, and also the thing that I noticed too, like especially at the beginning, like when he's in the boiler room and you kind of hear him as he's doing stuff, you just like, you don't see him like
he's getting a lot of heavy breathing.
Right. He's really the opposite of Michael, who's sort of the perfectly silent killer. He's always kind of like making these sort of almost like grunting animal noises. He's always
burnt to a crisp.
Yeah.
His lung capacity can't be that well.
Yeah. And it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget because everybody's so familiar with Freddy now. Mm-hmm. It's very much, in my mind, it's very similar to the first Alien. When that came out, nobody had seen anything like that before. Yeah. Now it's so overly familiar, it has no impact.
Was this really kind of like the genesis of these larger than life Michael Myers, Jason?
No,
did one of those come out beforehand? All 78.
They all came out before this.
They all came out before. Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th.
But what?
Yelling at me.
But I think what was unique about Freddy is that it's like a real guy. That is burned. Yeah, he's supernatural, but he was like a real criminal and scumbag. Yes. So people like this exist, in the
those monsters always scared me more. Like I could watch the larger than life King Kong and Godzilla and all these giant kaijus, but the minute you give me a Frankenstein or you give me a Dracula, someone who could really hide behind my closet, unsettling. I went with my buddy last night to Staten Island, and there's two houses that go all out with these decorations. And now you've seen these larger than life animatronic creatures or whatever. And he drags me to this, and he's like, "This is awesome." And I'm like, "There's a whole thing devoted to demonic clowns." And he's like, as an artist, I thought you'd appreciate this. And I'm like, dude, I don't like this at all. I want to go. I don't want to be here. I want to go. And he's laughing at me. And of course, there's people dressed in costume that jump up at you. And I'm like, that's how you get killed. Mm-hmm. It's like, Corey, I'm going to push you over the steps.
When did you see it? Did you see it?
I saw it on VHS. No, geez, I never would have. No, because back then it was a drive-in experience for me. The theater was not really accessible. But like you said, the VHS came out must be relatively quick because it had to have been in that 84, 85 window.
6 months. It came out 6 months after the theatrical release.
It was probably my senior year of high school. So, 16.
So did you see it with people or did you choose to rent it?
No, I think somebody actually rented it and brought it to my house. My friend Vincent Knowles, I remember specifically because the scene where they're having sex, and he was like, "Look, they're having sex." And
you don't even see anything though.
But as a 16-year-old that doesn't have access to scrambled porn or dad's Playboys that were hidden away in the garage, it was titillating. But the body bag getting dragged down the hallway was enough to freak me out. And watching this again, it is scary. Freddy is a monster.
Well, I think that first kill where Tina dies is absolutely horrifying.
Horrific.
She's going up the side of the wall. She's screaming. There's blood just coming out all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean, it's really intense.
And it's very well done. Obviously, it's just a tilted set that she's flopping around on, which, you want to break it down. But
I think I saw Lionel Richie walk through dancing on the ceiling.
Was he dancing on the ceiling? She was dying on the ceiling, by the way.
So you were 16, Jeff? And
I'm going to say I was probably 16, 15.
And Christina
16.
was 10.
Yeah. And I was probably more scared than she was.
So I was 14 when I first saw this, if it came out on video in 85, because my father had just started to take me to R-rated movies, like in the theater. Like I remember seeing the Terminator in the theater, and he had started to show me movies like Texas Chainsaw Massacre at home and Dawn of the Dead at home. And I got Fangoria every month. So I was completely invested in horror movies when this came out. And I watched it on VHS, and I wasn't as scared of it as you two were. I loved it. I thought it was great, but I enjoyed it more than I was scared of it because I didn't think, compared to like Texas Chainsaw, which I'm probably still traumatized over.
This is a light romp.
It's kind of a few rungs down below that one on the scare level, but I thought it was great. I thought the character was great. I don't think any of the sequels hold a candle to this one.
No, because I mentioned by the time you get to the third one, it is Dream Warriors where the kids are going in and into the dreams, and they basically have superpowers. Because they're that was like what I remember, that like loving that, because it is suddenly larger than life. It's not Freddy Krueger is no longer a monster. He is this character that just happens to have these stupid claws and can get you if you don't get him first.
The thing about this movie is that there's a terrible relentlessness to Freddy, because there's nothing more destabilizing than lack of sleep. Like, think about when you haven't slept for whatever reason. I myself today.
I was going to say, tell us about that, because
if for whatever reason you don't get enough sleep, like you start to feel like slightly insane during the daylight hours.
If you hallucinate, there's real
like you feel disoriented, and like not sleeping has real serious physical effects on your body. And the thing is that he's going to get you eventually, because you have to sleep. You have to sleep at some point. So I think that's what
Glenn didn't care, though. Glenn didn't care. Whatever you do, Glenn, don't fall asleep.
If you try not to fall asleep, that's when you're going to fall asleep.
She finally started taking the Valium, or she was whatever, or was that Lori? I don't remember now.
Oh no, she's taking like a no dose type of thing. Yeah, right. She's taking like a pill to keep herself awake. She's got.
Did anybody give their mom did your mom give you warm milk to go to bed?
No.
Why was that a cure-all? Right?
Hey, you can get kids melatonin now.
I know.
That's
I know.
available. And the kids,
gummies, yeah.
When the detail about her having the little coffee pot hidden, I watched a couple things. I watched I Am Nancy, which is a documentary that Heather Langenkamp did, actually about the kind of Nightmare on Elm Street fandom. And she was kind of exploring, like, why do people associate like so much with the killer in these films as opposed
Is this on like YouTube?
The Survivor I saw on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I have to look that up.
And then I also watched Never Sleep Again, which is a 4-hour documentary.
Hey, no wonder why you can't sleep.
About all of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. Oh. And this was made before Wes Craven died. So Wes is in there talking about the films. And the detail about the coffee pot actually came from a real story that he had heard. I'm sure you know, if you looked up anything about this film, that he was inspired by these real life deaths of these Cambodian refugees who were in the US, who seemed to be dying in their sleep after they had nightmares. And in one particular case, this boy was not sleeping, and his parents were like, what is going on? He's like, I can't go to sleep. I'm going to die if I sleep. They tried giving him like sleeping pills, and he would say he would take them, and he was hiding them under his bed. And then he had in his closet hidden a coffee pot with an extension cord that ran out into his room, and it was hidden from his parents so that he could stay awake, so he could not sleep. And he didn't sleep for like a good long time. I can't remember exactly how long, it was like a week or so. Finally, he did fall asleep. He started thrashing around, screaming in his sleep. He had a nightmare, and then he died. This is a real story.
That is just fulfilling your own fantasy.
And Wes Craven read this story about this phenomenon. Apparently it happened to more than one person. And he was inspired by this to be like, well, why are they dying in their sleep? There must be something killing them in their sleep. And that's how he came up with the idea of Freddy Krueger.
Interesting. I did see he used Freddy Krueger as the name of the kid that bullied him as a child.
Yes. He was working out a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's really working. Imagine that kid. He's like, a well-adjusted adult now. He goes to the movie theater. He's like, wait a minute, Wes, I remember that guy. And then he sees Freddy Krueger. He's like, whoa.
But it's fascinating. This is so interesting, yet kind of myth-destroying at the same time, to hear these mundane origins. Like, oh, just some kid I knew. That was his name, Freddy Krueger. And the fact that they were toying with what the killer's weapon should be, that they were thinking it would be a scythe at one point. Like, how uniconic would that be? Or maybe it would be. I don't know.
Well,
but
I mean, you gotta brainstorm this stuff, right? Otherwise, we would have just ended up with a refrigerator as the DeLorean, the time machine in Back to the Future. You got to be like, wait a minute, we got to come up with something. I do like the opening sequence because it's like a 10-minute YouTube tutorial on how to build Freddy's hand glove. It is a how-to video. Do it yourself.
I also like this because it feels like a dream, right? Like she goes
the whole thing right down to the ending. You never know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
And I think that is the brilliance of it.
We'll get to the ending. I don't want to jump ahead right now, but you're right that you're questioning at the end, any of it, was it real?
Yeah. And I think that's the unsettling part of it, is the unknown nature is what I'm experiencing in my head, because I'm so exhausted that I'm just hallucinating this, or did I actually fall asleep? Am I, or is this guy somehow coming out? Because I think later in subsequent movies, I think he has the ability to. Well, she brings the hat out of the dream,
and she brings him out.
Yeah, correct. That's true.
Towards the end, but we haven't really talked about when you're talking about the opening, the jump rope song, the 1, 2, buckle my shoe. Yeah, Freddy's coming for you. That's a very powerful thing. That song in itself.
Yeah.
Something that should make you all warm and fuzzy and comfortable inside and make it threatening, I think is brilliant.
And that's that. So when you see that with the three little girls doing the jump rope, and it's a very hazy shot, but then it's all the same shot. It pans over and it's immediately Nancy and her friends. So it's all like those little kids are right there on the hill.
But again, that's also, is this real? Because they're there at the end too.
Right.
It's 3 different girls though at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's 3 like slightly different little girls, but they're all wearing the white.
Yeah, the other 3 were on their smoke break at the end.
They're all wearing white dresses. I heard that rhyme so many times in grade school. Like kids
before
used to just
this movie?
sing it. No, when the movie came out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be
kids
punching
used to
people
sing
out.
it
I'd be like, no, stop.
all the time.
Were they singing it to you because of your name?
To me, because I was
Yeah.
scared of Freddy.
Were they all in a circle and you were like on the ground in the middle, like, no?
No.
Did you have a coffee pot in your closet?
I did not. My bedroom was at the end of the hallway, like sort of separated from everybody else's bedroom. So in order to, like, if I had to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I had to get up and like in this dark little alcove and like walk down the hallway. I was scared to get up because I was sure that Freddy would be waiting for me like around the corner, you know. But again, I was 10, you know, think about your imagination at that age.
Yeah.
I'm sure if I had seen this for the first time when I was 15, it wouldn't have had the same effect on me. I mean, I was afraid to walk past. There was a standee of Freddy at the video store, and I was afraid to walk past it.
Well,
you know?
that's understandable. Yeah, I just started peeing my bed. I was just like, I'm not even getting up. Start wearing Depends now at the age of 15.
I just want to say though, poor Amanda Wiss, who was dragged around in a body bag. She had millipedes coming out of her mouth. She's got all of this stuff. I mean, she's just like physically terrorized. They put all these eels by her feet.
I know. But although I did read, I don't know if this is true, that was a fake mouth that the millipede came out of. So even she didn't want to do that. She'd crawl around on the ceiling with blood pouring out of her and everything else. But the millipede,
it's a deal breaker.
You gotta draw that line in the sand.
I'd probably rather have a millipede come on my mouth than wear that nightgown.
But that scene where she's killed on the ceiling, that's also the scene where Freddy starts to come out of the ceiling above Nancy. That's a great visual. That's what I think of every time I think of the first nightmare, is that scene, just because it's so well done.
Yeah, and it's very simplistic in its execution with the backlit, but it is that is, and of course, you know, the crucifix falls off and then she looks up and of course he goes away and she hangs that thing back up and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't think I'd be sleeping in there.
And one of the things that you should know, because this was discussed in the documentary, it's like, so there's a $1.1 million budget for this film. The FX budget was $57,000.
That's where ingenuity comes in.
That's why I think the effects here are they're so much more effective than the movies that came later, and they were bigger budget, you know, more spectacular effects. But I think what's here is more visceral than anything that came later.
Look at the scene where she's running up the stairs and she steps and she goes through it and it's like oatmeal. That happens to me. You ever step on cat puke at like 3 a.m. in the morning? That's exactly, this squishes between your toes. That's horrific.
So it turns out that it was Bisquick. That scene was so controversial. So as they were making this film, Bob Shea, who was the producer, who owned New Line, wanted certain things in this movie, including the ending, which we can talk about when we get there.
Yep.
Wes didn't love the ending. So he wore Wes down. He wanted this scene of Nancy going up the stairs and stepping in something sticky, the sticky stairs. And Wes didn't want it, and Bob Shea wanted it, and he just pushed and pushed. Finally, Wes was like, fine, put in the stupid sticky stairs. And Bob Shea actually directed that scene.
Listen, if the guy's paying your paycheck, you know, he's signing off on your paycheck. Sometimes you just got to give him what he wants. But that's another one where it's like, you know, is it a dream sequence? Is it not? And then, you know, she's running up the stairs and boom. Yeah, we're very much in a dream.
Well, I think to some extent you can tell when they're dreaming in the film. There's a couple of visual cues.
Yeah.
First, it always seems like there's fog when Freddy's about to appear, which is how you know at the end that it's not real because there's fog. The other thing is, you know, they're walking around barefoot, right? And the reason why they're always walking around barefoot is because they're dreaming. They got into bed in their pajamas and they're barefoot, right? So you're wearing what you're wearing as you sleep, and that's one of the reasons I think why that happens. There's so many surreal things that just show you that it's a dream. Like when Tina's dreaming and the sheep runs across the hallway, it's like that's like this random quality of a dream. You're like, why is this in here? One thing I love about this movie, he created such a strong character in Nancy. She says, I'm into survival. And she is so determined to kind of face what's coming. She shares a lot of qualities with Sidney Prescott, and you can see why Wes was attracted to that material later, because these are two characters who have a lot in common. They're these characters who are sort of willing to stand up and fight and not just run.
She goes complete Home Alone at the end.
Oh yeah, Kevin
It's like I was expecting Freddy, Joe Pesci, and Daniel Stern to be coming after her. But this viewing, and I never thought this before, but this viewing, I thought that the ending negated Nancy's empowerment over Fred.
Because she still had no control
didn't win.
over him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why Wes actually didn't want that ending. So when we get there, we can talk about that. But he wanted it just to be that they drove away in a car, a regular car, not a Freddy car, and it would pan to the little girls jump roping and singing the song, which sort of implied that maybe they're
a little more ambiguous.
Yeah, it would seem like Nancy had won, but Bob Shea wanted
the Carrie ending, right?
Yeah.
The killer's still around.
Yeah, and they actually shot, I think, 5 or 6 endings. There's a few different ones. There's one where Freddy's actually driving the car.
He's a chauffeur now.
Yeah.
With his glove on?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem safe.
And there was, and again, it was just a kind of thing where Wes just kind of got worn down. Bob Shea wanted this
when
ending.
You got the execs on set. Well, this was kind of like this really made New Line Cinemas, correct?
Yes, the house that Freddy built.
No, oh, that's actually what they refer to. Okay.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Okay. All right. So New Line Cinemas was not really a.
They were a distribution company. They didn't really make films. They'd made like 2 or 3 films. And Wes had actually been circulating this script for like 3 or 4 years around Hollywood, and nobody wanted it. He's friends with Sean Cunningham, who did Friday the 13th. They had been.
Was he the kid that was killing in Halloween Ends?
No.
Oh, okay.
That was Richie Cunningham.
That was Richie Arnie.
And Sean Cunningham was like, nobody's going to buy this because nobody will think it's scary. Which
really
is crazy, to think. But
sometimes you just don't see the vision.
But he said, he thought that it was too ambiguous, that people wouldn't know if it was real or if it was a dream. And that was what Wes was going for.
I think that's the power of it.
Yeah.
Wait, you got to explain this. You got to spell it out. It's like.
And Wes Craven said that he wrote Nancy the way he wrote her because of his daughter. Jessica.
You mentioned before, she's a very, very strong character. And she doesn't give in to and this is why, I said I had a huge crush on this character, this actress. Mm-hmm. She's not what you consider Hollywood pretty, I guess. She's a normal looking girl, but she's got the stamina to stand up to this guy. He's slaughtering her friends left and right, and yet she still is like, I've taken. And of course, this is another tale of parents are stupid and don't know what the hell's going on.
As original as this is, there's still plenty of tropes being done here.
Yes, right.
Teenagers against the world. The red herring of they all think it's the boyfriend that was the killer.
Because right. Well, I mean, he was the only one in the room with her. Why wouldn't you think that? Sorry.
And then he runs away the next morning.
Yeah, he literally throws Nancy in front of the gun. I'm like, dude, you really are a douchebag. Let's talk about Nancy's parents. What's going on with Dad's hair, by the way?
Let me tell you, John Saxon never changes. Whenever you see him in a movie, this guy's hair looks the same in 1966 as it does in 1986.
That's because
this guy has an impenetrable comb over. It is impeccable. His picture should be in hairdressers worldwide. John Saxon.
I want the Saxon. Give it to me.
I think the interesting thing about her parents is, you can understand her dad not believing her, because it just sounds nutso, right? Like your daughter's saying,
also a cop.
But just wait. So
Okay,
it sounds like
fair
your
enough.
daughter is saying, there's a killer in my dream and he's coming to get me. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, okay. All right, honey.
But
I'll see you when I get home.
her mom takes her to a lab, sees her put on a nightgown, knows she doesn't have Freddy Krueger's hat with her, right? Sees her lay down in the room. There's nobody in the room. They're watching through a window, okay? Literally witnesses her daughter having a nightmare where she comes out and her arm is cut and she's holding Freddy Krueger's hat. And she's like, how did you sneak that in here? No, lady, you witnessed it.
And the doctor's like,
it.
and the doctor who is the voice of Roger Rabbit, by the way, that sleep doctor.
That is Roger Rabbit. I was going to ask you if you
The
knew that
doctor's
was
like
Charlie
writing a
Fleischer.
note. Girl has hat. Interesting.
Freddy? Yeah, interesting. Note to self. She does great parlor tricks.
So, but it's little things like that.
Yeah.
And also like the parents who, especially the mother, who is no help. Traditionally, the child finds solace or protection from the parents, and the mother's just inebriated the entire time, and the father doesn't believe her. So again, this is the stuff of kids' nightmares.
Yeah.
Where your parents are ineffective.
Right, yeah. But even worse, when she does realize that it's Freddy who's terrorizing her, and then she's like, oh, I got something to tell you. Yeah, meanwhile, this was a real guy. He killed 20 children, got away in a technicality, and so we had to take matters into our own, talk about mob mentality. But how did she get a hold of his glove? When did that, physical
it's
evidence?
like she's been holding it all these years,
right?
Inside her boiler.
Because
all the parents took a piece of him. They all went. Somebody's got his skull in their basement as well.
Yeah. Well, listen, I had the hat, and then Nancy took it. And I don't have the hat anymore. That's the only thing I wanted. But what was interesting, and I'm thinking to myself, why is he not going after the parents or the parents?
Well, but as a revenge, I'm going to get your kids. If that's why you did this to me, so I wouldn't get your kids, I'm still going to get them.
Well, you know that there's a deleted scene that expands upon that the mother explains to Nancy she had a sister, and the sister was one of the kids that was killed. So at least now there's a tie-in. Now there's a reason why he's going after this family. Yeah, I'm going to take whatever's left. But yeah, I think I'd be going after the parents who locked me in the boiler room and burned me.
You'd think so, except that what's more devastating for a parent to die or to have your children
Yeah, but
die?
I'd also want you to know why I'm doing it. I would be like, hey, remember what you did to me?
But the infamous Johnny Depp in the bed scene where it turns into a fountain of blood.
There's much more blood than the human body can hold.
Listen, hey, we suspended belief that there's a guy in your dreams that we can suspend.
I mean, he got sucked into the bed, and I don't think that's normal bed behavior. So
I don't know. Some of those orthopedics give away real quick.
What's fascinating to me, and I didn't look this up to see if I could actually watch the footage, is that they filmed an alternate version for TV where it was just a skeleton that popped out of the bed and crushed against the ceiling.
I saw another one where he comes back. He actually comes back out of the bed.
And then he collapses on the bed.
Right.
Yeah.
What we didn't talk about yet, though, was the glove scene in the bathtub.
The very infamous. That is some scary crap right there.
That brings a whole other sexual, aspect to the threat against Nancy as well. And Jeff, I'm sure that maybe you had some PTSD of Jaws attacking you in the shower.
Yeah, correct. I've never taken a bath since because I was more worried about a shark fin.
And speaking of Jaws, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that they tried to get Roy Scheider to play Nancy's dad, but he was too busy doing 2010.
Do you know who was originally supposed to play Freddy?
Yeah,
David Warner.
David Warner.
They actually did makeup tests with him.
And then he backed out at the last second, said he had another commitment.
I think it would have been a completely different character.
He'd be English, first of all. But can you imagine Roy Scheider? He wouldn't be able to listen to whatever Nancy was saying because he'd be too busy closing the beaches.
At least he probably would believe her. There's a giant shark in my dreams. I got you. I need a bigger bed.
It is supposed to be set in Ohio, although there's an awful lot of palm trees. for Ohio.
I thought it was supposed to be set in just LA. I thought that's where it was supposed to be happening.
It's supposed to be the Midwest.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh.
Really?
Yes.
Good job. Good job.
There you go. They didn't have it in the budget to digitally remove those trees.
And at one point, I had to laugh at this. Nancy, like, disgustedly looks in the mirror. I look 20 years old.
I know. 20. Oh, my gosh.
Oh, let me start playing the violin for you, Nancy.
Listen, she that gray hair.
Well, that's the whole thing. You know, they're only supposed to be like 15, these kids.
I don't know. Glenn, maybe. I mean, Johnny Depp was pretty young.
And let me just point out that the girl that doesn't get enough credit is the hall monitor. I think she's terrifying, the hall monitor.
Yeah. Where'd you pass?
Because Nancy is following the dragged body of Tina into the boiler room. And then
Why?
But she wakes up in class. And there's a guy sitting in front of her that looks like he's 35 years old. One of the students.
He was held back. I had a couple of people in my class that a couple years older than they need to be.
So let's talk about Rod. How can he get killed if he's awake? Because he's awake when he's hung in his jail cell. He wakes up. No answer,
hanged.
right? Crickets. Crickets.
But how do you know he's awake?
Because he wakes up. He opens his eyes, and as the thing wraps around his throat.
He could be asleep and dreaming.
I don't know.
And thinking he wakes up.
Isn't he yelling, though, when, like, help?
That's the whole thing that, you know, you
What's
never
the
really know,
dream?
like, when they're asleep, when they're really asleep and when they're awake.
And also, I did notice this, knowing what the whole history is now of these parents with Freddy. The parents kind of look at each other at his funeral. Like, does this have to do with that thing?
Hey, remember that thing we did that we don't talk about? Did you pick up on the teacher, Lynn Shay?
Mm-hmm.
Here she's back again. We just talked about her.
Detroit Rock City. That's right.
Any relation to the producer?
Yeah, it's
Shay?
a sister.
It's a sister. Oh, interesting.
Nepotism. Come on.
Did you guys catch Joseph Whipp, Sergeant Parker? He's also Sheriff Burke in Scream.
No, I did not pick up.
He's one of the lieutenants. Yes, he's the one who's standing on the lawn at the end going, maybe I should get the lieutenant when she's screaming out the window. Yeah, he shows up later in Scream.
And so the reveal when Nancy's mom tells her the story.
Yeah.
And they have the fight. And Nancy pulls out the hat to shake it in front of her. What did she keep it in the utensil drawer for easy access for this fight?
Yeah,
because that's where she pulled it out of, in the kitchen.
Well, I think Mom took it from her.
I'm going to put it right here. Well, Nancy knew right where it was.
We need to talk about the phone tongue.
Yeah,
that's brutal.
I'm your boyfriend now.
And that's the closest we get to a quip, but it's not said in a funny way. It's meant to be like a really creepy thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's predatory.
Yeah.
Well, it's Freddy Krueger.
Yes.
But if that line were said like 2 or 3 movies later, it would get a laugh.
A huge setup. Yeah. Freddy had to work on his timing.
There's that contemplative scene where Glenn and Nancy, before Glenn is killed, are walking across the bridge. And Nancy has the book about how to set booby traps, right? So this lends how she knows how to do all these miraculous things in her house with the sledgehammer and everything else. But Glenn tells her that some Eastern religions think you can control the dreams. So she also incorporates that a little bit later on.
Yes, and she turns her back on him and says she won't give him any more energy.
Yeah. So Glenn did help her out in the end, even though he had terrible taste in music with that Jay Giles band poster.
I did like the fact that Nancy's dad was a police officer and she had a police poster on the wall. So maybe she had better taste than Glenn. We're going to need a stretcher. And they're like, no, just a mop.
Sting could offer Nancy no help in this movie, unfortunately.
Dang.
I think
Murder by Numbers would have been a good add-on to the soundtrack.
I think actually the ambulance was for Glenn's mom, who probably passed out and needed to be taken to the hospital for shock, because it's not normally how you expect to see your kid.
No. I just washed those sheets.
Yeah, especially after he watches Miss Nude America every night. He needs those sheets washed.
Yep. Good to be a teenager. But yeah, she basically pulls an it by belittling him.
Yeah, I think you're right, Jim. I mean, it does kind of undercut her power as a heroine a little bit by having that ending where he comes back. Again, it was very controversial. There was multiple endings shot, and Wes Craven didn't want that. He wanted her, to win, to kind of walk away at the end, but there'd still be like that little bit of menace with the little girls singing the song as they do the jump roping. But Bob Shea really wanted the mom to be sucked through the window. That's a
good visual.
Great effect. It's a great visual.
Although now when you like watch it over and over again, it looks like an inflatable doll.
Yes, correct.
Which it is.
It's a quick cut, but still it's very effective. And you're unsettled this entire movie. And when the end credits roll, you're still very unsettled. There's nothing is resolved. And I think that's great. That's as a scary movie. It's like, he's still out there.
But again, it's not the first time. Look at the end of Friday the 13th or the end of Carrie. It's
Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The booby trap scene. Another great visual is when, because her plan is to grab Freddy just like she grabbed the hat and bring him into the real world. So he materializes in her bed and you see the stain
of his head.
When he stands up.
So I just want to get back. So this was on HBO Max, right? Are they all on there? Because now I want to watch the second one to see how Nancy comes back. I'm assuming she comes back.
She does not come back in the second one.
She does not come back in the second one?
She's in the third one.
Then I'm going to watch the third one.
So the second one is highly controversial, amongst Nightmare fans.
I'm sure I've seen it over the years. But
I saw that one.
Kind of watching it with.
That's the first Nightmare I saw in the theater. Was the second one.
There was a list that came out a few years ago that listed the best horror movies with queer subtext, and that one was number one.
Alrighty.
I bring this up because it was very controversial at the time, because a lot of fans at the time remember the environment that you're talking about in the late 80s,
right,
where a lot of people still weren't out if they were gay, where we still had the specter of AIDS, and there was still a lot of anti-gay sentiment sort of widely in America. People were upset at the time that it was quote unquote a gay Nightmare on Elm Street, a gay Freddy.
Huh.
See, and when I saw it, this went right over my head. I didn't pick up on that at all.
Interesting.
Until years later, when I was reading stuff like this that you're talking about, I'm like, yeah, I guess, yeah. That's right.
And the screenwriter says he put it in as subtext. The main actor that they cast in the role was openly gay, so he feels that he was playing it up more maybe than was intended in the screenplay. And then I guess there was according to the Never Sleep Again, the documentary I was watching, one of the set decorators was gay, and he kept putting little things in the background.
Oh, jeez.
So there is this kind of, and I'm not talking about this in terms of the quality of the movie at all. You can debate whether or not it's effective as a horror movie, but for this reason, I think that this second chapter has sort of continued to be controversial among the fandom.
I don't think I realized that.
But people love Dream Warriors. So Heather Langenkamp comes back for Dream Warriors, and that's the one I think that a lot of people really attach themselves to.
That was probably the first I saw in the theater, and the one I mentioned numerous times throughout this episode. Yeah.
You know what brought you into the theater for that one, Jeff?
What was that?
Dokken.
Listen.
Dream Warriors.
Yeah. Dream Warriors. That's right.
That's the reason everybody loves part 3 is Dokken.
Oh man, I'm going to have to watch it today. Screw cleaning the sheets and mopping the floors.
In the documentary I watched, Never Sleep Again, they interviewed Dokken, and the lead singer talks about how he can't even sing that part anymore. He's like, it was so high.
Oh, yeah.
He was like, even then it was a struggle for him to pitch his voice.
He didn't think about his future self. Billy Joel says that a lot too. He's like, yeah, I can. Yeah. I wrote these songs when I was 20.
What's hysterical to me is that Craven based Kruger's sweater on what he read in Scientific American in 1982. that they said that the colors red and green are the two most clashing colors to the
Any
human
designer
retina.
will tell you that. Anybody who took Art 101 will know that red and green vibrate.
Well, then why does Christmas give us such a warm fuzzy then?
I don't know.
That's Christmas, red and green.
Santa's an idiot. Maybe he's colorblind. I have no clue. I don't know where that came from.
It's a disconcerting combination.
But it's so like it's hard to even read that sweater as green. It is
in the dark
black. It is almost black.
That's the interesting thing. He's in shadow a lot, so you don't really see. You only sort of see flashes of him.
He's in silhouette, and
And it's interesting because the second film I think really establishes the iconic Freddy makeup more than the first film does.
Yeah, because he's still, like you said, he's in shadow. You never really get a close look at him, and that makes him more scary.
Yeah.
You know, more effective.
Yeah.
Like I said before, you become over familiar with him as a as a fan of the franchise.
Yeah, I think this only took like 3 hours, the prosthetics on this. I'm sure the latter films took more because he is in light and he's because you scrutinize that a little more.
In the first film, they basically just used his face. For the second movie, the makeup artist wanted to sculpt the cheeks out so he had a sharper look in his face. He gave him more of a hook nose. He did kind of all these details to make the face sort of sharper and more extreme. And I think, and it's interesting because the makeups do morph a little over the course of each film.
That's any of them. I mean, look at the Michael Myers. They're changing the mask every movie.
But Robert Englund talks about how in the second film, they didn't actually want him to come back.
Why?
They said it didn't matter. They didn't have to pay for him because he wanted more money because he was going to come back to play this part. Of course, you're an actor, so your agent says more money, right?
Yeah, back then you didn't sign multi.
He was
deals.
contracted.
Really?
But they were going to kick him out of his contract because he wanted more money, and the studio at first was like, anybody can do it. It's just a guy in a rubber mask.
I think to an extent they're right after that first movie because like we said, you never really got a good look at him.
Shadow.
He wasn't the Freddy that he became yet. So I could see how they would justify that kind of a decision because somebody different can play Jason every time. Somebody different can play Michael Myers every time.
Yeah.
Well, except that the casting of England was so deliberate because they were like, we don't want a stunt man because all the other sort of iconic, killers like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees and stuff had just been played by stuntmen.
Right.
And they were like, we want a real actor. And England put all this thought into the way he moved, even the way he stood, he was the glove was a little heavy. So he's my shoulder hitched down. So he says he looks a little bit like a gunslinger. Right. And he did that deliberately.
Yeah, sure.
He did all these things deliberately in the first film. So when they did a couple of scenes for the second film with, some stuntman who they thought just a guy in a rubber mask, and the guy looks so stiff compared to Englund, because even though you don't really hear him talk, Robert Englund was doing all of these kind of mannerisms and things that become iconic for the character.
I'm sure they probably said at first, is David Warner doing anything for part two?
I think he bulked up a little bit.
But I did also note that they were looking, or Craven had in mind a big guy like a Michael Myers, Jason type killer,
which makes sense.
But it also, when you think about it, we were talking before about how Freddy is so effective because he could be a real person. Bring in Robert Englund, somebody that looks normal. So that is much more effective than some Superman.
Normal. Even out of makeup, he does not look normal. He's like, yep, that's a guy. That's a guy who's been killing 20 kids. 20 kids before you call it this guy?
Yeah. 20 kids. And the original script was
hang out with the Sanderson sisters.
Yeah, that's about how many people Ethan Hawke kills in The Black Phone and from the same school. And the cops can't track down some black balloons. But
anybody see a black van? Nope.
You know,
can you believe they shopped this to Disney?
They shopped it to everybody.
To everybody, but interested.
Disney was interested. Whoa, we were interested, but you have to change the entire thing.
That'd be great to go into Disney, and now Freddy's like one of the Disney princesses. He's running around.
This is early 80s.
Sweater on.
Early 80s is the days of Something Wicked This Way Comes and all this other stuff. The Watcher in the Woods that Disney had been putting out. So they probably did want to Escape from Witch Mountain, probably something that would be like a kid's horror movie, right? That was like a gateway.
So we want this, but can you get rid of the knives? Can you get rid of the killing and the dream aspect? Yeah, okay, I'm on it. So it's just a creepy janitor who wears a hat. So shot in 34 days, by the way. Yeah. So that is guerrilla film right there.
80 effect shots in a 90-minute movie.
Yeah, and you said the budget was pretty nil. I think it was like
1.1 million.
But I think that was bumped. I think the initial was like 700,000 or something ridiculous.
But you can always tell, like low budget horror movies have that gritty look to them that really sell the horror aspect, and the sequels that they pump more money into just look clean and homogenized. Yeah, because in comparison,
because you want to show every dollar on screen. Listen, we paid $5 million for this. I want to see every little bell and whistle. No, this is very effective. Did you know that the high school is the same high school in Pretty in Pink and Grease? Theoretically, we could have got a Freddy versus the T-Birds. That would have been fun. Ducky?
Yeah, you don't want Freddy's hand around your shoulder at the drive-in in Grease Lightning. No.
Oh, Sandy.
We didn't even mention that Nancy's watching Evil Dead to stay awake in one scene.
Which was Wes's response to them putting the Hills Have Eyes poster in the original Evil Dead. They have a whole conversation going in
the movies,
in their movies, just acknowledging each other's work, which is a really cute thing.
Yeah. I see you. No, I see you.
But I really want to recommend you guys seek out I Am Nancy. It's on YouTube, or you can buy it on DVD. It's unfortunately not available to stream otherwise. Heather Langenkamp started this whole thing because she kept seeing people with like Freddy tattoos. And she's like, why does nobody have Nancy? You're
right. She's the hero.
Because they negated her at the end. That's why. If she won, there'd be Nancy tattoos.
Gone with Craven's original ending.
But she's going to all these conventions. And she's doing these appearances. It's so disheartening to watch her go around and ask, do you have a Nancy figure?
No.
Do you know?
Yeah.
No. And they're like, no, we don't have any.
Or fans coming up to her. Where's Freddy? Where's Freddy? Did you bring Freddy?
Right. Oh my gosh. No, something really did happen. They're filming and she's talking to somebody who played Jason Voorhees in I think the third Friday the 13th. And she's like, oh, I played Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street. And the guy goes, where's Robert? Like immediately.
Dismisses her. Completely
you can just see her shrinking. But it's I think it's sort of an interesting exploration of like the phenomenon of fandom. But then there are some very passionate fans who come up to her because she is this iconic.
Sure, I could easily see that. Yeah.
Character who survived, who fought back. And even Robert Englund says there's this feminist spine to the movie, not necessarily present in some of the horror films that came before. And again, it goes back to Wes Craven's daughter, Jessica, had criticized him because in Swamp Thing, Adrienne Barbeau's character keeps falling down and tripping and being stupid. And she said to him,
she's hard to stand up. Yeah.
She said to him, Dad, women aren't this stupid.
Well, I think that's unfair because
nice call out. Yeah.
I think that's unfair because the final girl didn't start with Nightmare on Elm Street. Definitely not. I think that you see some strong female characters.
Oh yeah, I know.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But a lot of times it's because they are pushed to a point where they have to fight back. Whereas I think Nancy, except for the initial attack scene that you see, she immediately sort of stands up and faces what's going on. She's not running from it the way other characters do in other horror films. I mean, we love Laurie Strode, but
I was gonna say, are we pointing at you, Laurie?
Laurie is just, she's running, she's hiding, she's
Which
only
is what most people would do,
right. So I think that's one of the things that distinguishes Nancy is she she makes this plan. She's like, I am going to stop this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to make sure that this doesn't happen to anybody else.
Yeah, I think it also was to the point that she was trying to prove that she wasn't freaking crazy.
Yes. She was like, I'm going to bring him out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. No, I'm telling you, this is what's going on. Parents just don't understand.
No, they don't.
So I am convinced that we're all going to give this high marks, lots of buckets to be spread around here. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Is this a secret 5 bucket for anyone here?
No.
No? You don't think so?
I think this is an extremely high quality movie. But for me, a 5 bucket is a movie that I love to watch over and over and over again.
Yeah, for me, it's more of a personal thing, a 5 bucket, than anything else. But this is way up there, in my estimation. Like I said, loved it when I was a kid. For where I was, or what my mindset was at the time, looking for a great horror movie. And the 80s, there was no dearth of horror films that were great coming out in the 80s. But this still managed to stand head and shoulders above almost everything else that was out there. And I recognized it for what it was, even at 13 years old. I'm going to go 4.5 buckets for Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, I agree. I think 4.5 is right. I mean, there's just no denying that this is something that's really different from everything else you were seeing at the time, where, a lot of horror movies had started to get formulaic, and then suddenly brings in this something that's completely different. And for my money, this one's great. Dream Warriors is sentimental favorite, and I love New Nightmare.
You've mentioned that before.
Really love New Nightmare. I love the meta nature of New Nightmare. I love what Wes is trying to say about sort of the interconnection of like horror and culture and all these other things. I mean,
and Nancy's back in that.
And Nancy's back in that one. So if you just want to see the Nancy movies, it's 1, 3, and 7.
I'm all in on Nancy. Oh no, am I gonna get a Nancy tattoo now? Jeff's a Nancy fan. I'm gonna go solid 4. That's pretty high for me for one of these scary movies, but it was fun to kind of revisit this. And it's solid entertainment. And it's a Freddy you don't get in any other nightmare movie.
That's true. That is absolutely true.
Yeah.
Well, this goes back to what you and me were talking about, Jim, with Evil Dead, how the first film is just a completely different thing from the other 2 films, where Ash becomes a different kind of character.
So, and maybe we will save those later nightmare films for another episode.
Next year.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps.
Sorry.
But as for now, what else did we do this week?
I don't know. Let's start with Christine over there, because who knows what she's watched.
Well, I watched a family-friendly Halloween film this week. I watched Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo, the new one, which is out. It's on HBO Max, or it's streaming. It was fun. It was still not as good as Frank and Creepy, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the best direct-to-video Scooby-Doo film.
Even better than Zombie Island?
Oh no, I love Frank and Creepy. It's so good. So funny. Truly one of the funniest. Although for my money, the best Scooby-Doo product is Mystery Incorporated.
Right.
TV or movies. But I came to the conclusion this week that Frank Welker could never die. I just decided.
Listen, you know what they could do? He could just sell off his voice like James Earl Jones did to Lucasfilm.
He can never die.
Library.
Because Frank Welker is Fred. Period. He's always been Fred. He's still Fred. He's the only original cast member who's still making these movies.
Yeah.
Frank Welker is Fred. Frank Welker can never die. There. I just put it out into the world. Frank Welker, you're going to live forever.
Up there. He's got to be up there, right?
I don't know, but I'm scared. Don't die, Frank Welker.
No. Take your vitamins, sir. All right. So I said before that I actually had leaned into I dipped my toe into the spooky season, but I don't want to guess anything too scary. Because I guess if I did, I should have looked for Trick or Treat Scooby Doo, because that sounds like it's more up my alley. But do you remember the 1986 classic House?
Yes.
Greatest American Hero?
I've seen this fairly recently as well.
Cat. This is on, I think I found it on Prime. And I did see this in the drive-in. It's a goofy movie. It's a weird kind of wacky mashup of like Burnt Offerings and Evil Dead 2, because you got goofy monsters.
Yeah.
But
speaking of Sean Cunningham,
that's right, his name was associated with that.
Yeah.
And Fred Decker did the story. He did Monster Squad.
Oh, okay. I could see those existing in the same universe, kind of a thing. But we get the wacky neighbor George Wendt and Richard Mall. So a lot of 80s, mid 80s.
And the greatest American hero himself.
William Katz.
Yeah.
Who does a great job in this. Although I don't buy the fact that he was a Vietnam War vet.
Yeah, those flashback scenes are pretty laughable. Complete on a set. Yeah.
So on a set. Yeah. Rubber trees and all. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. And I have not seen this in a very long time. It's nowhere near as scary as I remember it being. It is goofy. There's some goofy monsters going on. But that was it. That was what I watched.
And I watched, again, it's becoming a Halloween favorite ever since we covered it, Paranorman.
Oh, good go-to.
Yeah, I love Paranorman.
It's I don't own it, so it was on the Roku channel because I have a Roku box. But unfortunately, they put commercials in just like Tubi does. Like I think at least Tubi, whoever
finds a moment,
programs it, they find a moment to do it. This is just happening at random, like in the worst possible spots. Right. So I think I am going
for your brains.
I am going to have to buy it. Although they are completely guilty of whitewashing at the end when Abigail, she drifts into nothing. That scene was cut with a commercial right in the middle of it.
Oh, you just destroyed it.
Yeah.
It is a very well put together movie.
I love Paranorman.
Stop motion animation, like
I have
top of their game with this movie.
I'm gonna send you guys a copy after this. I have this adorable picture of my son, who was about 4 when this came out, standing in front of this big lobby. You know, it was like one of those big
display
things with all the characters, and we were going in to see Paranorman because we saw this in the theater when he was little. This is one of our favorites.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what are we doing next week?
We're holding on to Halloween.
I like this. I listen. I'm on board. Let's do it.
You know, we can't let a Marvel property go by without discussing it. So
no, and it's unfortunate we had to wait this long, but we will be talking about it.
Werewolf by Night.
Yes.
Next week we will
on Disney Plus.
And along with it, just clarify this for me. We're covering The Fly. Is it the Jeff Goldblum or is it the Vincent Price?
I hope it's the Jeff Goldblum.
That's what I thought. I thought we were watching the Cronenberg.
We're going David Cronenberg. We don't need no help me.
I think
there's a lot to be said for help me.
There is a lot to be said, but there's a lot to be said for Gina Davis and Jeff
All right
Goldblum.
Then. So the 1986 version of The Fly with Gina Davis, Jeff Goldblum. All right. Next week, Werewolf by Night and The Fly.
I'm in. Let's go. Until next week.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. TeePublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you. I, too, would have preferred to watch the original Halloween, but I usually watch it every year anyway. Don't you watch it every year?
No. Please stop yourself.
This film is effed, but that was the most fun I've had in a long time.